On Christmas, my mom looked at the handmade gift my daughter made and said, "I don't accept trashy gifts from kids who aren't really family." So I did this. Now she's at my door, crying for forgiveness. Sup, Reddit. Grab some popcorn and settle in, it's a long one. Name's Dominic, 36 male. I'm an architect. Commercial buildings mostly. Strip malls, medical offices, the occasional warehouse for companies that ship stuff nobody needs to people who can't afford it. It's not glamorous, but it pays. Stable income. Good benefits. The kind of career that lets you plan ahead, save for your kids' future, and apparently fund your parents' entire lifestyle. For 8 years, I've been quietly bankrolling my parents' life. It started after my dad's early retirement didn't pan out the way they'd hoped. His pension was smaller than expected. Their savings weren't what they thought. Suddenly, they were 60-something and realizing they couldn't actually afford the lifestyle they'd been living. A few hundred here for property taxes, then car insurance, then the mortgage when they fell behind, then a new water heater, then dental work, then a kitchen renovation my mother absolutely needed because the old one was depressing her. I paid for all of it, opened up my bank account like I was running a charity for ungrateful relatives. And you know what I got in return? The privilege of being treated like furniture at family gatherings. The honor of watching my daughter get overlooked while my sister's kids got showered with attention. The distinct pleasure of being the reliable backup plan nobody actually respects. Here's the thing about being the dependable one in a messed up family. You're expected to function, to perform, to show up with your wallet open and your mouth shut. And as long as you keep delivering, nobody questions it. Nobody thanks you. They just assume you'll always be there. I have one kid, Maya. She's 9 years old, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Her mother was Danielle. We met in college, got married at 25, and had Maya 2 years later. Danielle was brilliant, funny, and the only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't just useful, but actually wanted. She was also gorgeous. She happened to be black, which apparently mattered to some people, including my own parents, though they'd never admit it out loud. Danielle died 4 years ago, ovarian cancer. By the time she had symptoms, it had already spread. She fought hard for 11 months, but it wasn't enough. Before she went, she made me promise to take care of Maya, made me promise to keep her safe and loved and protected from anyone who didn't deserve her. Then she was gone, and I was left with a 5-year-old daughter who looked just like her mother and a family who'd never fully accepted either of them. Maya is everything. She's got her mother's eyes, her mother's laugh, and her mother's stubborn streak that drives me crazy in the best way. She's creative and kind and way too smart for a 9-year-old. She notices things, picks up on stuff, knows when people are being fake even when they're smiling. My parents were never openly hostile to Danielle. They were worse. They were polite, cordially distant. They'd include her in family photos but somehow always position her at the edge. They'd remember her birthday, but send generic cards with no personal message. They tolerated her presence while making it clear she wasn't quite one of them. After Danielle died, I thought maybe things would change. Maybe they'd embrace their only grandchild from their only son, fill some of the void left by her mother's absence. Instead, they doubled down on their indifference. Maya became a reminder of the daughter-in-law they'd never fully accepted. And my sister's kids, all 3 of them, biological and white and fitting neatly into my parents' vision of what family should look like, got everything Maya didn't. My sister Kendall is 33. She's the golden child, the one who can do no wrong. She married a guy named Logan who works in pharmaceutical sales and makes decent money, but spends it faster than he earns it. They've got 3 kids, a McMansion with a pool they can barely afford, and an inflated sense of their own importance that my parents actively encourage. Kendall has always known exactly where she stands in the family hierarchy, at the top. She's never had to earn my parents' approval because she was born with it. She's also never missed an opportunity to remind me of my place beneath her. Growing up, she got the bigger room, the better gifts, the attention. I got the lesser treatment and the expectations. Be responsible, be mature, support your sister, help your parents. So I did, for years. I became exactly what they wanted me to be, a reliable source of financial support who never complained and never expected anything in return. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was thinking it would ever be enough. Christmas arrived cold and gray. My parents were hosting their annual Christmas dinner. Same tradition, same house, same family dynamics that made me want to stick my head in the mashed potatoes and call it a day. The house I'd helped them keep was decorated with lights and wreaths and all the trappings of a happy family that existed mostly for show. When Maya and I walked through the front door, Kendall's kids were already tearing through the living room like a tornado. My mother was fussing over them, adjusting their sweaters, telling them how handsome and beautiful they looked. My father sat in his recliner, talking to Logan about golf. Nobody looked up when we arrived. Great start. Maya held a small wrapped box in her hands. She'd been working on it for weeks. Every night after homework, she'd disappear into her room with craft supplies and emerge with glue on her fingers and a secretive smile. She wouldn't tell me what she was making, just said it was for Grandma. I'd caught glimpses through her door. Paint bottles, glitter, a small wooden picture frame she'd bought at the craft store. She was decorating it carefully, painting tiny flowers and hearts around the edges in purple and silver, my mother's favorite colors. She'd even put a photo inside, one of her and my mother from 2 Christmases ago. She'd wrapped it herself, using way too much tape the way kids do, and written on the tag in her neatest handwriting, "To Grandma, love Maya." She was nervous. I could see it in the way she kept checking the box, making sure the wrapping hadn't torn. She wanted this to be the thing that finally made my mother love her. I should have known better. My buddy Ray showed up about an hour into the dinner. We'd been friends since high school, and he was the type who shows up no questions asked. He worked as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. My parents tolerated Ray because he was useful at fixing things around the house. He'd helped them install a ceiling fan last summer, fixed their garbage disposal the year before. They had no idea he was also documenting everything for me. We'd been building a file for 6 months, just in case. Ray had suggested it after I'd told him about Maya coming home crying from Easter dinner. He said if it ever came to a head, I'd want proof. Dinner was the usual production. My mother served Kendall's kids first, making sure they got the best portions of everything. She asked them about school, about their activities, about their friends. She remembered details, followed up on things they'd mentioned months ago. When Kendall's middle kid mentioned his soccer team made the playoffs, my mother actually clapped her hands together, like he'd won the Nobel Prize. She was interested, warm. With Maya, she was cold, distant. She asked one generic question about whether Maya liked her teacher, didn't wait for an actual answer, and moved on to refilling Kendall's iced tea. Maya had started telling her about the art show at school next month, but my mother was already talking over her, asking Logan about his golf handicap. Ray caught my eye across the table. Slight nod. He was recording too, backup angle from his phone propped against the centerpiece. We'd planned for this. My parents had no idea they were sitting in the middle of a documentary about their own cruelty. I watched my daughter shrink a little in her seat, watched her push food around her plate, watched her steal glances at her cousins being showered with attention she'd never receive. The gift exchange was predictable. Kendall's kids got big packages with expensive presents inside, a gaming system for the oldest, designer clothes for the middle one, a tablet for the youngest, gift cards with significant amounts loaded on them. My mother had clearly spent weeks planning this. They squealed and hugged my parents. My parents handed Maya a single small package. She opened it carefully. Inside was a coloring book and a box of crayons, the kind you buy at the dollar store when you forgot to get a real gift. Maya smiled and said thank you because she's polite, but I saw her face fall for just a second before she covered it up. Then she stood up. She took a breath. She walked over to my mother with her little wrapped box. "I made this for you, Grandma." Her voice was small. "I worked really hard on it. I hope you like it." My mother took the box. She looked at the wrapping like it was something gross she'd stepped in. She opened it slowly. She lifted out the picture frame. Purple and silver flowers painted carefully around the edges. Glitter accents that caught the light. A photo of Maya and my mother inside, both of them smiling. Hours of work from a 9-year-old. The room went quiet. My mother looked at the frame for a long moment. Then she set it down on the table, pushed it away from her like it was dirty. "I don't accept trashy gifts from children who aren't really family." The words hit Maya like a slap. She stood there, frozen, her face struggling to process what she'd just heard. She just stared at my mother, then at the frame lying rejected on the table, then at me. I felt something shift in my chest, something that had been building for years, my whole life of swallowing my anger and playing the good son and pretending everything was fine. Kendall smirked from across the table. She actually smirked. But here's the thing. I was ready. I pulled out my phone. My thumb was already on the screen. I'd been recording since we sat down for dinner. Camera propped in my shirt pocket, capturing everything. "That was interesting, Mom." I kept my voice calm. Because I got all of that on video. Every word. My mother's face went white. My father stopped mid-chew. Kendall's smirk disappeared. For about 3 seconds, nobody at that table moved. I told her I'd been keeping records for months. Every snide comment, Every dismissal. Every time she forgot Maya's birthday while remembering every detail of Kendall's kids' lives. Every cent I'd ever given them. It was all compiled. Ready to send to everyone in their contacts. Their church group. Their friends. Their neighbors. Everyone who thought they were such wonderful people. My father started to stand, face reddening. Kendall opened her mouth to say something. I held up my phone. What do you want? My mother's voice came out strangled. Nothing. Not anymore. I stood up slowly. I just wanted you to know that I'm done. Done funding your life. Done watching you treat my daughter like dirt. Done pretending we're family when we're clearly not. I took Maya's hand. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go. Then I walked toward the door. My mother called after me, her voice cracking. Kendall shouted something about me being dramatic, ruining Christmas. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, my daughter beside me, and left that house knowing exactly what came next. The drive home was quiet. Maya sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the Christmas lights on other people's houses. I kept both hands on the wheel and my mouth shut. Sometimes kids need space to process things. After a few minutes, she spoke. Dad, does Grandma hate me? I pulled the car over. Right there on the side of the road, Christmas lights blinking in the distance. I turned to face her. No, baby. Grandma's problem isn't about you. I took a breath. Some people are just messed up. They can't love anyone who doesn't fit in their tiny little box. That's her problem, not yours. You're the best kid in the world, and she's missing out. She was quiet for a moment. Then she looked at me with those big eyes. I don't want to go back there. Ever. We won't. I promise. When we got home, I got her settled with a movie and her favorite snacks. Hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. The fuzzy blanket Danielle had bought her that still smelled a little like her mother's perfume. I sat with her for a while. Just let her know I was there. Around 8, she fell asleep on the couch, and I carried her to bed. Then I went to my office and got to work. Ray came over around 9. He brought Chinese takeout and his laptop, same as he did most nights we worked on something. We sat at my kitchen table with containers of lo mein and General Tso's scattered between us, and started phase 2. For 6 months, Ray and I had been quietly putting together documentation. We called it the insurance policy. Ray had helped me set up a secure folder on a cloud drive. Bank records showing every transfer I'd made to my parents, every bill I'd paid, every emergency I'd covered. We had screenshots of texts where my mother dismissed Maya or made passive-aggressive comments about mixed children being difficult. We had recordings from previous family gatherings where Kendall made snide comments about Danielle's family or questioned whether Maya was really my kid. We had a paper trail that told a very clear, very incriminating story. The total financial support over 8 years came to $87,000, about $900 a month average, but it added up. Mortgage payments when they fell behind, property taxes, car repairs, medical bills, home improvements, loans to help with Kendall's kids' private school that somehow never got repaid. I'd also been paying for their car insurance for 3 years, their homeowner's insurance for 2. I was listed as an authorized payer on half a dozen accounts. That night, I started making changes. First, I logged into my bank and canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $850 that had been going to my parents' account for the past 4 years. Then I called the insurance company's 24-hour line and removed my credit card from their autopay. I sent an email to the county tax office revoking my authorization to pay their property taxes. Ray helped me draft a formal letter to my parents. I informed them I was terminating all financial support immediately. Enclosed was a complete accounting of the $87,000 I'd provided over the past 8 years. I stated I would not be available for future financial assistance and wished them well in finding alternative arrangements. No explanation. I printed it out, attached the spreadsheet, and sealed it in an envelope. Then I composed an email. The recipient list was small. My Aunt Nora, my mother's sister, who'd always been kind to Maya, my Uncle Donovan, my dad's brother who I suspected had his own issues with my parents, 2 cousins. I wrote that I was sharing something they needed to see. After 8 years of financial support, this was how my parents treated my daughter. I attached the video. I clicked send. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I even finished my coffee. Texts, emails, voicemails, all from different family members with very different reactions. Maya was still asleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, watching the responses roll in. My Aunt Nora called first. She couldn't believe her sister said that to a child. She was horrified. She told me she'd always suspected something was off with how my parents treated Maya, but hearing it out loud, it broke her heart. She asked what she could do to help. I told her to just be honest. Don't let them spin it. Don't let them make me the villain. She said she had my back. Completely. No hesitation. My parents tried calling about a dozen times that first day. I let it go to voicemail each time. The messages went through the stages of grief at impressive speed. Denial. The video was taken out of context. Anger. How dare I humiliate them like this? Bargaining. Let's talk about this like adults. I'm sure we can work something out. Depression. We're devastated. We never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't respond to any of it. Kendall sent a group text to me, our parents, and several cousins. She called me a manipulative liar. Said I'd set the whole thing up to make the family look bad. She said Maya was too sensitive, that kids need to learn the world doesn't revolve around them. She accused me of using my dead wife to make our parents look like racists. That one almost made me laugh. My buddy Cal reached out that afternoon. We'd met through work years ago, him being an accountant for several of my commercial clients. Cal was the kind of guy who could smile at you while explaining exactly how the IRS was going to wreck your life if you didn't get your finances in order. When I'd mentioned months ago that I was thinking about cutting off my parents financially, he had offered to help me map out exactly what would happen to their finances when the safety net disappeared. He'd been almost excited about it. Said he'd never had a chance to use spreadsheets as weapons for a good cause before. He had been doing math on my parents' situation for weeks now. He'd pulled public records, estimated their monthly expenses, mapped out their debt obligations. The guy treated financial analysis like a competitive sport, and he was annoyingly good at it. Without my monthly contributions, my parents' household budget was underwater by about $900 a month. They had savings, but not enough to cover the gap for more than 6 or 7 months. After that, they'd have to either find additional income, cut expenses dramatically, or start missing payments. And they'd already burned through most of their goodwill with extended family. My Aunt Nora confirmed that my parents had borrowed from her twice in the past 5 years and never paid her back. My Uncle Donovan said the same thing. Cousin after cousin had the same story. Small loans that disappeared, promises that were never kept. They'd been working the whole family for years. I was just the biggest sucker they had access to. 3 days after Christmas, reality started hitting them. Without my automatic deposit, they couldn't cover their mortgage payment. The bank sent a notice. Late fees started stacking. Without my insurance payments, their coverage was set to lapse in 30 days. The insurance company wasn't interested in payment plans. Without my property tax authorization, they'd missed the quarterly deadline and owed penalties that would only grow. My father left me a voicemail. Acknowledged that my mother had said something regrettable. Used that exact word. Regrettable. Like she'd accidentally worn the wrong shoes to church, instead of telling a 9-year-old she wasn't family. He suggested we all sit down and talk about it like civilized people. He reminded me that family was everything, that holding grudges was toxic, that forgiveness was the path to healing. He never once apologized, never acknowledged the years of favoritism, never mentioned the $87,000 I'd given them, just expected me to come back and resume my role as the family piggy bank. I forwarded the voicemail to Aunt Nora, let her hear the non-apology for herself. Kendall's karma started arriving around the same time. Turns out, she'd been counting on my parents for free childcare 3 days a week while she and Logan worked. With my parents now scrambling to figure out their finances and dealing with the social fallout from the video, they didn't have time or energy to watch her kids anymore. She had to hire an actual babysitter. Her already stretched budget got a lot more stretched. She also learned, through the family grapevine, that several cousins had seen the video and were now viewing her differently. The smirk she'd worn while my mother rejected Maya's gift had been captured clearly on camera. A cousin sent me a message saying she'd always known Kendall was fake, but seeing her smile while a kid got hurt on camera confirmed everything she'd suspected for years. She offered to testify if I ever needed it. I thanked her, but said it wouldn't come to that. The web of small betrayals my family had been spinning for years was starting to come apart. 2 weeks into January, my parents showed up at my house. I was in my home office, reviewing plans for a retail center that was already behind schedule and over budget. Normal work problems. I heard the car pull up and looked out the window. My mother getting out of the passenger side, my father from the driver's side. Their old Honda, the one I'd paid to repair twice last year. They sat in the driveway for a minute before getting out, probably rehearsing what they were going to say. They looked older than I remembered. Smaller. Not as intimidating. Maya was at a friend's house for the afternoon, which was probably for the best. I walked downstairs and opened the front door before they could ring the bell. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me, putting a barrier between them and my home. Wasn't planning on inviting them inside. My mother started crying immediately. Actual tears this time, not the fake kind she used to get her way. Her face was red and blotchy, her eyes swollen. My father stood slightly behind her, jaw tight, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. I'm so sorry, Dominic. I'm so sorry. She was shaking. I didn't mean what I said. I was stressed. The holidays. I wasn't thinking. Maya is family. Of course she's family. I love her. I've always loved her. I let her talk, watched her spin her story, adjust her narrative, try to find the version of events that would make me feel sorry for her. When she finally ran out of words, I kept my voice calm. Yeah, I don't believe you. I crossed my arms. 8 years. That's how long I've watched you treat Maya differently than Kendall's kids. 8 years of her trying to earn your love while her cousins got everything handed to them. My mother shook her head. That's not true. I made mistakes, but I never meant to. I have it on video. I cut her off. 6 months of documentation. Every gathering, every interaction, all recorded, all time-stamped. My father stepped forward. You're being vindictive, punishing us for one comment when you should be grateful for everything we've done for you. I actually laughed at that, which seemed to throw them off. What exactly have you done for me? Let's count it up. $87,000. That's what I've given you in the last 8 years. I have the spreadsheet. Every transaction documented, mortgage, insurance, taxes, repairs, medical bills, even part of Kendall's kids' private school tuition when you called it a loan. I paused. Yeah, that money was gone. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw tightened, but he didn't have a comeback. What have you given me? Besides criticism and comparisons to Kendall and the privilege of watching my daughter get treated like a second-class citizen? They didn't have an answer. We're done. Money's cut off. Access is cut off. And if you show up here again, I'm calling the cops. My mother grabbed my arm. We'll lose the house. We have no options, please. I'll do better. I'll treat Maya like she's my own. I'll prove it. I removed her hand. You had 10 years to treat her like your own. Thousands of chances. I took a breath. You blew every single one. It's too late. My father's voice went cold. You'll regret this. Throwing away your family over nothing. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just done pretending. I went inside and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them argue on my porch for several minutes before finally getting back in their car and driving away. I went back to my office and finished the building plans I'd been working on. Life goes on. Over the next 3 months, I watched my parents' carefully constructed life fall apart. Not all at once. Not in some big dramatic way. Just a steady slide that picked up speed the longer it went on. Their mortgage went into default. The bank sent formal notices. Without my monthly contributions, they simply couldn't make the payments. Not even close. They tried to refinance, but their credit wasn't good enough. They tried to get a personal loan, but no one would approve them without a cosigner. My father apparently asked 3 different relatives. All of them said no. Word had gotten around. Their car insurance lapsed. My father got pulled over for running a stop sign and was hit with an additional fine for driving uninsured. That went on his record and made future insurance even more expensive. Their social standing started slipping. The video had made its way through the family first, then to a few church friends who couldn't keep their mouths shut. People who'd smiled at them for years started keeping conversations shorter. Invitations got lost in the mail. The couple who'd been fixtures at community events found themselves on fewer guest lists. My Aunt Nora kept me updated. She still attended my parents' church, and she said the whispers had started. People would stop talking when my parents walked by. The pastor had quietly suggested they take some time away from volunteer activities. My mother had tried to do damage control, telling people the video was edited, taken out of context. Some believed her. Others had seen the original footage and recognized her voice, her exact words, how she pushed Maya's gift away. The church ladies group that my mother had led for 12 years eventually asked her to step down. My father's poker buddies thinned out. Not everyone abandoned them, but enough did that they noticed. Kendall tried to pick up the slack for our parents. She sent them money when she could, which wasn't much. She helped them negotiate with the bank. She tried to shore up their reputation by posting family photos on social media with captions about how much she loved her parents. But Kendall had her own problems brewing. Logan's spending had finally caught up with them. They were behind on their own mortgage. Her 3 kids all had expensive activities. Private school tuition was crushing them. And without free childcare from our parents, they were bleeding money they didn't have. 2 months after Christmas, Logan lost his job. Pharmaceutical company restructuring. Just like that, their household income dropped by 60%. Kendall called me 3 days after Logan got fired. I was actually at work when my phone buzzed with her name on the screen. I let it ring twice before picking up, just to make her wait. Dominic. Hi. Her voice was tight. Look, I know things have been rough between us, but we need help. Just temporary. Just until Logan gets back on his feet. Family is family, right? You wouldn't let your nieces and nephews suffer because of some fight. I let her finish. Then I spoke. Why would I help you, Kendall? You've spent our entire lives making me feel like the lesser sibling. You called my daughter too sensitive. You accused me of using my dead wife as a weapon. Silence on her end. I could hear one of her kids yelling in the background. Logan snapping at someone to be quiet. The sounds of a household falling apart. I was stressed that day. Her voice got defensive. Things came out wrong. You're holding grudges when you should be focusing on family. You're right about one thing. Family is important. That's why I'm protecting mine. I kept my voice flat. The people who love us and treat us with respect are family. You're not. Mom and Dad aren't. You're just people who share DNA and think that means you get my money. Dominic, figure it out yourself. I hung up. 4 months after Christmas, my parents lost their house. The bank foreclosed. They had to sell at a big loss just to avoid a deficiency judgment. The buyers got a deal. My parents got humiliated. They took what little equity remained and used it to rent a small apartment in a neighborhood they would have turned their noses up at 2 years ago. Gone was the house I'd helped them keep for nearly a decade. The new place had thin walls and a parking lot view, and neighbors who argued loudly at 2 in the morning. The elevator was broken more often than it worked. Kendall and Logan and their 3 kids moved in with them about 6 weeks later. Their own house had gone into foreclosure too. Logan's credit was wrecked. Kendall's wasn't much better. No landlord would rent to them without a massive deposit they didn't have. 4 adults and 3 children crammed into a 2-bedroom apartment because nobody else would take them in. The kids shared an air mattress. Kendall and Logan got the pull-out couch. My parents got to sleep in their own bed, which was about the only win they had left. I heard through Aunt Nora that it was chaos. Arguments about dishes, arguments about noise, arguments about who ate the last of the bread. Kendall and my mother weren't speaking half the time. Logan had started sleeping in his car just to get some peace. He still hadn't found a job. Turns out being let go during a restructuring looks bad on a resume, especially when you're over 40 and your industry is shrinking. Every interview went nowhere. He'd burned bridges at his old company, talked trash about management on his way out, and word had gotten around. He'd gone from pharmaceutical sales to applying at retail stores, and even those weren't calling back. Kendall had picked up extra shifts at her part-time retail job, but it wasn't nearly enough. Cal estimated that my parents' net worth had dropped by roughly $110,000 since that Christmas dinner. Between the house loss, the insurance penalties, the credit damage, and everything else piling up, they'd basically lost everything they'd spent 30 years building. They'd been living beyond their means for years. Now the net was gone, and gravity was doing its thing. 6 months after that Christmas dinner, my mother appeared at my office. She'd either looked up the address or gotten it from someone in the family. Either way, she'd made a deliberate choice to ambush me somewhere I couldn't simply close the door. Somewhere with witnesses. I was coming back from a site meeting when I saw her sitting in the lobby. She looked thinner. The past 6 months had aged her in a way that years of comfortable living never had. Her clothes were wrinkled. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize, probably from a thrift store. She stood when she saw me. Her hands were clasped in front of her, almost like she was praying. The receptionist, a woman named Sharon, who'd worked there for 15 years and had zero patience for nonsense, raised an eyebrow at me. She'd seen all kinds of people walk through that lobby over the years, but she knew family trouble when she saw it, silently asking if she needed to call security. I shook my head. I could handle this myself. Then I walked toward my mother. How'd you even get this address? I needed to talk to you. Just 5 minutes. Please. I came all this way. I took 2 buses because we can't afford gas for the car anymore. I could have had security escort her out. Part of me wanted to, just to watch her face as she was removed from the building like some random solicitor. But there was another part of me that wanted her to say whatever she'd come to say so I could shut the door one final time. Fine. 5 minutes. Follow me. I led her to a small conference room off the main hallway. I didn't offer her coffee or water. I didn't sit down. I just stood by the door, arms crossed, and waited. She started with excuses. She'd been raised a certain way. Her own parents had been harsh and critical. She'd never learned how to show love properly. She'd made mistakes, but she'd never meant to hurt anyone. I listened without expression. I'd heard versions of this speech my whole life. She said losing the house had broken something in her, made her see how much she'd taken for granted, made her realize how much she'd relied on me without ever appreciating it. She said she understood now why I'd pulled away. She understood why I'd exposed her to everyone. Then she pulled something from her purse. It was the picture frame. Maya's picture frame. purple and silver flowers. The photo's still inside. My chest tightened when I saw it. She said Kendall had found it in the trash at the old house. They'd been packing up during the foreclosure, throwing away years of accumulated junk, and Kendall had found it crumpled in a garbage bag. My mother had apparently thrown it out that same Christmas night, before the dinner dishes were even done. Kendall had given it back to her. Whether to be cruel or as some twisted attempt at making her face what she'd done, I didn't know. My mother said holding it now, she finally understood what she'd destroyed. She held the frame out to me. Give this back to Maya. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her it was beautiful. Tell her she was loved, even if I was too messed up to show it. I looked at the frame in her trembling hand. I took it from her. Then I looked her in the eye. Maya doesn't need this back. She doesn't need an apology. And she definitely doesn't need a grandmother who threw her gift in the trash, then came begging for forgiveness when her cushy life fell apart. Dominic, please, what you did to Maya, what you did to me, what you did to Danielle. I kept my voice steady. That doesn't get fixed with a tearful speech. It doesn't get fixed at all. It just is. It's who you are. And now everyone knows it. Her face crumpled. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all? Her voice broke. I'll do whatever you want. The only thing I want is for you to leave. My office, my life. Stop trying to contact me or Maya. I opened the conference room door. Find whatever peace you can, but do it far away from us. She stood there for a long moment, tears running down her face, looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time, and what she saw was a door closing forever. I'm sorry. It came out as a whisper. I love you. I've always loved you, even if I never knew how to show it. That's the sad part, Mom. I believe you actually think that. I stepped aside. But it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. Go. She walked past me, pausing in the doorway like she wanted to say something else. Then she just shook her head, defeated, and shuffled toward the lobby. I watched her go. She fumbled with the exit door for a moment before figuring out you had to push, not pull. Then she was gone. That night, I took Maya out for dinner at her favorite restaurant. We split a ridiculous chocolate dessert that was way too big for two people and talked about her art project at school and the book she was reading and the friend drama that seemed like the end of the world to a 9-year-old. I didn't tell her about my mother's visit. Didn't see the point in reopening wounds that were finally starting to heal. When we got home, I put the frame in a box in my closet. A reminder of what Maya had offered with her whole heart and what had been tossed aside without a second thought. The house was quiet, clean, ours. I made myself some tea, sat on the couch, and didn't think about my mother at all. Sometimes walking away is enough. You don't have to destroy anyone. You just stop propping them up and let gravity do the rest. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.